Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the next installment in our new figure showcase series. And I know it's been a little bit of a pause just with all the showcases going on and everything, but we're back. So here we usually take a look at a new figure I'm adding into the collection. More often than not, it's going to be a newer release. For today's episode, we're going back to Marvel and we're looking at the Thunder Toys God of the Moon figure, which is their version of Khonshu based on his appearance in the MCU's Disney Plus Moonknight series. Now, Moonknight is an interesting series to me, at least when it's related to the figures. The show, really loved it. I thought it was an interesting story with great performances, especially from Oscar Isaac. But what made it interesting as far as figures are concerned is the varied sources of all of them. We got the phenomenal Moonknight released from Hot Toys, and then we got a number of third-party Mr. Knight figures. But I do think my favorite of those, which is also the one I picked up, was the So-So version. That included a pretty solid Oscar Isaac sculpt. And now we have Khonshu. Also not the first time we're getting a version of him, but it is, I think, the better one. The other third party we got was just a swappable head on a Mr. Knight body, whereas this figure is just massive, which looks very much more in line with the actual scale of the character in the show. So let's jump in and take a look at what we're getting here. And for a figure like this, the star is really going to be the figure itself, because you don't get much at all. You get the giant staff with the crescent moon headpiece, and then you do get two alternate hands, but pretty bare bones. Although in hand, just again, the scale of everything, it makes everything really impressive. The figure is gigantic, and if you saw the promo shots when this went up for pre-order, the staff is even taller. So be prepared if you get this for a bit of a real estate hog in your collection display. Could this have come with something else? I guess, maybe a diorama base, maybe some extra accessories, but this being third party, I think it's a pretty solid effort overall. So let's jump into the accessories quickly, and we'll start with the two spare hands, which are molded in a nice softer plastic, clearly meant to hold the staff. They look great. They're molded well with the bandages sculpted on, and you can kind of see exposed knuckles below, and also some hints of rope, like tying everything together. The other nice thing, these aren't pristine white hands. There's some variation to the grays and whites, giving the pieces a nice weathered look. So I think solid overall. And now the final accessory is the staff. So again, very tall, adding a bit of height to the figure itself once everything is put together. It does come out of the package in two pieces, with the crescent moon headpiece being separate. The joint at the connection point isn't the best. It doesn't fit seamlessly. But look, it's manageable, especially for third party. Overall issue I have with these third party big pieces, like this staff, or for example, the big hammer we got with the Toys Battalion Obsidian, is that they feel like they're lacking in detail. Surface is textured a little bit to mimic a stone of sorts, and from a scale perspective, it does impress. But when you look more carefully at the details, it's just lacking something. But honestly, again, it's the scale that's going to impress you with this one. So very functional overall. But now let's jump into the figure itself, and we'll start with the sculpt and the head, which is pretty insane. So to start, again, a large piece, not just based on the scale of the figure, but since it is a bird skull, you have the beak, which adds a lot of depth to the overall portrait. So everything here just impresses from a scale perspective. Now the sculpt itself is gorgeous. It is a skull, so look, I don't think it's as difficult to get this right as an actual person sculpt, but it still doesn't take away from how good it looks with the open eye sockets, the nasal cavities, and then the different paint apps here. So while the staff lack detail, I do like the detail work that went into the skull itself. And from a profile view, he just looks menacing. I really do love it. And the other thing that makes this impressive, the connection to the body is kind of interesting. So in the show, the head floats freely over the body, so Thunder Toys managed to recreate that nicely here with a clear peg. So it's a nice way of creating the illusion of that head floating. Now let's look at the figure overall, and again, super tall. Very impressive from that point of view. And there's actually a lot of detail here to create the mummy wraps. And there is a cloak that consists almost of shreds of fabric that does include some wired elements at the tip, letting you really create the illusion of something flowing in the wind or swaying. Also, the material is all weathered, so it looks aged and like he's been in the desert, so really happy with there. But the funny thing I noticed with the wraps, and look, it's not a bad thing, I actually think it was kind of a creative way of doing them. I'm pretty sure the wraps are medical tape, just wrapped over the underlying body. So look, it makes sense for a mummy figure, but it let Thunder Toys kind of create a really tight-fitting suit over the body, and even with some frayed material at the edges, it does create that feel of something old. So this is one where you want some evidence of distressed fabric, and they kind of did that, where it adds a little something instead of detracting. So it's decent, but I thought that was interesting. One thing that's also pretty nice here is that the ankles are stiff, so I didn't have any issues with the figure standing up straight, which can sometimes be a problem with these larger scale pieces. So it's definitely a plus. The feet though, look, they're sculpted with the same bandage kind of look to create that mummy appearance, but I do slightly dislike that there's no color matching here to the rest of the suit. I don't remember from the show if this is screen accurate, but on the figure, it can be a little distracting. Now, there are also some good detail points here too with the belt piece, and then you do have the crescent insignia held against its chest wrap, so there's some great detail work here that has to be considered, and I have to give props to Thunder Toys for it. Posability is decent. The wraps are definitely an issue to a degree when trying to pose the figure, especially the legs, but you can still get some decent range of motion on the arms, and even the legs can bend a little bit. Look, he's not a supremely dynamic figure, but you can still get some nice poses with the staff. So for a figure that's a little bit tight on the band, it's still nice, especially with the arms. So look, when you get third-party figures, you have to be willing to accept that there are some potential issues, and you're not going to get something as good as a Hot Toys release or the like. And even more so, I always feel like larger third-party figures can just lack some of the detail work we're used to with the smaller scaled figures in the same 6 scale. So you should just expect that. And you are getting some of that over here with the staff in particular. But looking at the figure overall, even in the pose just holding the staff, the word that comes to mind is presence. It has some real visual impact, from the flowing fabric cloak to the sheer scale of the staff, and everything just pops together. I love the look of the figure, and the look of the sculpt is really impressive overall. This is the only Khonshu on the market. Sorry, this isn't the only Khonshu on the market. Like I mentioned at the start, there have been other versions. The one that comes to mind most is that combined Mr. Knight Khonshu release, which was just a little bizarre since you ended up with a small scale version of this character. When on the show, for the most part, he towers over Moonknight and all the other people. So this is a much more screen accurate version. Plus, having him in the robes, just awesome. So look, needless to say, I'm impressed. Is it perfect? No. There's some slight issues I have with things like the color of the feet and the detailing on the staff, but honestly, those are completely small when you look at how good this guy turned out overall. And as a little comparison, and also a little preview of an upcoming video I have, you can see how tall he is standing next to a more standard 6 scale figure. In this case, the Exo 6 Spock. So Khonshu's just massive, and he looks great. So this is one of those pleasant surprises from the third-party release, which happens from time to time when you all of a sudden get, you don't know what to expect, and you get just something that over-delivers. I think that's the case with this figure. So a great release overall. So as always, just thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.